Hi, my name's David Bertelsall and this is the Fiat 500. Hi, my name's David Bertelsall and this is the Fiat Abarth. Hi, my name's David Bertelsall and this is the Abarth 595 Scorpionoero. Alright, it's an easy mistake to make. This car started off as a Fiat 500, as you can kind of tell by the overall shape and design, but it's been reimagined by Abarth. This is kind of like the AMG to Mercedes. They've taken the Fiat 500 and give it a little bit of spice. And this is the kind of mid-level Abarth. Right, so this is the 595 Scorpionoero. The 595 is with respect to the horsepower. There's a couple of different names that you can have after that, of which Scorpionoero is this beautiful black and gold. It's all about the trim and the look. You might be wondering how much this kind of costs. It's actually not that expensive, just over £22,000, which for most guys, most people kind of 18 to 25, that's going to be at the top end of their respective budget. But in my opinion, there's actually not many other cars which look like this, which are quite as cool and fun for that sort of money, because it's not so expensive to buy, and also the insurance isn't too much. It doesn't cost that much to run. So for people kind of young professionals looking for their new car, this actually is a pretty good idea. This car kind of takes me back to when I was 17 and 18, thinking about what are the things that I really wanted from a car back then. The first thing would have been great alloy wheels. It's got to have great alloys. The second thing was overall it's got to look quite cool. And then the third thing was the speakers have to be fantastic. And the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is the interior. It's a bit of a mixed bag, if I'm completely honest. Some of the materials in here, a little bit cheap. The plastics feel a little bit cheap in certain places. We've got piano black on the dashboard, which, as we know, is an absolute magnet for fingerprints and dust and all sorts of dirtiness, which means it's hard to keep it clean. But apart from some of the cheaper plastics, the interior is actually quite nice. There's certainly some nice touches. We've got leather here on the front, we've got the steering wheels in leather, there's actually metal here, we've got metal accents on some of the floor, we've got a nice metal plaque here on near the handbrake. Overall, it's quite a nice place to be. It's not exactly amazing quality everywhere, but for the price that you're paying, it's pretty good. It certainly looks more premium and feels more premium, a little bit more special than some of the other cars you get for this sort of price, like a Renault Clio or Ford Fiesta. There is one major plus about driving the 595 Scorpionoero, and that is that the sound system in here is fantastic. Abarth have linked up with Beats to put the sound system into this car. That's the same people that make those awesome headphones that you can use in the studio, and it's really, really good. If you're someone who really likes listening to their music loud and wants to hear the quality of that music and the depth of the music, then this speaker system is certainly better than a lot of other cars. One thing I do love about this car is actually this. It is the single dial in the middle. It's got my speedo, it's got the rev counter, it's got my fuel efficiency, trip computer, all that kind of stuff right here in the center. And because it's just this one circular dash, it's actually really easy to read. The speed is in nice big numbers, and I kind of like it. The only thing I would say is that if you are reversing and you've got the steering wheel in the highest position, it kind of blocks all the beeps, you know, where you're looking on the dash, so you can't actually see what the thing is you're about to hit, which is less than ideal. I kind of like this central system. It tells me when to change gear. More fuel efficiency, which I'm all for right now, when currently in the UK we ain't got any petrol. Now let's get on to how this car drives. It is small, it's very, very small indeed, and you definitely feel that. It's short, agile, responsive. Driving it around the city in London, I've been taking gaps that I wouldn't normally take because it is so small, and you know, your seating position is basically right in the middle of the wheelbase. So if you are kind of past that space, you know you're going to get into it. It kind of takes me back to riding my moped around London and nipping through little spaces. And then when you come to the car park, you can just like spin the wheel. The steering is so light that I've actually been throwing the steering wheel and just letting it kind of catch. It's so assisted when you're in the eco mode that actually it's really easy to maneuver the car, and it's very simple. The clutch is light, the gears are light, everything's quite easy to maneuver at low speeds. So kind of getting around town for that kind of easy city driving, it's really good. The riding position is something I want to talk about a little bit here, because the car is very short. It's also very tall. You have loads of headroom. I'm 6 foot and I've got a good, what's that, 4 inches above my head before we hit the roof. The seating position is very high. You're very close to the pedals. My knees are kind of bent quite a lot, and it's vastly different to say like a sports car where you're low and elongated. It was quite a shock getting into this for the first time. I kind of put the seat in the position where I wanted my legs to be, a little bit further back, but then I was so far away from the steering wheel, I basically ended up driving the car like this, which, as we know, is not going to be ideal. Which meant that I needed to move the seat further forward. My knees are a lot more bent, which actually is a bit annoying, because my knees kind of hit the steering wheel sometime, or I'm hitting the kind of central column where the gear selector is. It would be better if the steering wheel came out, right? If the steering wheel came towards me, that would solve most of these problems, but it doesn't. It just moves up and down, which means that I'm kind of in a position I'd rather not be in. However, the riding position is nothing in comparison to the frustration that I feel driving this car over anything other than the smoothest surface. The suspension's almost, oh shit, pothole, almost unbearable. It's so hard, it's so firm, there's basically zero travel. It feels like I'm in a Renault Clio that's been slammed to the floor by some boy racer, because every time you go over a pothole, a bump, a lump, even a cat's eye in the middle of the road, there is a massive feeling, vibration, slam. And honestly, I've had passengers in and I've actually had to apologise to them for the harshness of the ride. I feel like a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, because I'm like bracing for an impact, knowing that the car suspension just isn't going to be able to deal with it. Kind of going around town, there's speed bumps, you have to slow down so much for the speed bumps. You're putting it into first gear just because there's just no smoothness. It's really challenging, and actually that makes the car less enjoyable to drive on a day-to-day basis. I think that it'd be really hard for me to live with this car. When you get out of the city and onto the motorway, obviously if you're covering loads of miles, you want the bumps in the motorway to be absorbed and to be smoothed out, but actually even on the smoothest motorway there's still bumps, and you feel it, and you kind of shake around from side to side and up and down. And you know, if you had a partner that was sitting here that wanted to have a little sleep perhaps on a long journey, well, that ain't gonna happen. I feel like they'd just constantly be getting woken up and bounced around because the suspension just isn't able to cope with it. It's so stiff. And all of this is in the comfiest setting. There is a sport button. You press it, it's on the dash. Everything goes red. It's quite cool actually. Dials completely changed. No longer are we looking at fuel economy, but we've simply got temperature, speed, revs, and how much petrol you've actually got left in the tank. Things change quite a lot. Well, two things change. The first is that the car becomes a lot more responsive. The throttle response is significantly more sensitive. You can feel the car really turn up. The other thing that changes is the steering. It is no longer light. In fact, it's almost too heavy. I don't really like driving the car in sport mode because it does feel so heavy. It would be better if we could have the throttle response in sport mode, but actually still retain the simple lightness of Eco Pro mode. That being said, because the suspension's so firm, when you're driving in this sport mode, because the bumps are kind of taking you around, you feel so part of the journey. It's really engaging, and I'm constantly thinking about what's happening. If there's a little bump in the road, I'm kind of weaving around it, and it is quite good fun to drive on a B road. I'm actually, like, I'm smiling, it is quite good fun for that short journey, you know, 20 minutes or whatever on the back roads. It's quite a little nippy car, and that brings me on to one of the things I do actually enjoy about driving this car, and that's the engine. It's good. It's a little 1.4. We've got 163 brake horsepower and a turbo, and the turbo is the thing that I'm enjoying, because right here on the dash there's a little turbo dial. It's fantastic. It tells me how much pressure I've got going through the turbo each time, how much bar. You know, it chills at 0, but then once you get the RPMs past about 3,000, it starts to come up, and you can just see it spin round as you change gear. It flicks back down to the bottom and then turns back up and flicks back down to the bottom again. It's quite exciting. And when you're getting the engine in that sweet spot above 3,000 RPM where the turbo really starts to kick in, it does have some pull. Because the car's so light and it's so small, 163 brake actually is sufficient. I wouldn't really want to put much more through those front wheels, because it is front wheel drive, and definitely when you're pushing it, you can feel the front wheels trying to catch the grip. You can feel them struggling a little bit with the steering, as it's trying to just do so much on this small little chassis. It kind of reminds me of when I was a teenager, driving my little Vauxhall Corsa. Having fun, trying to get the wheels to spin and claw their way around the corners. There is obviously stability control on the car, and that will kick in. If the front wheels start spinning, it will just cut the power and wait until it's got enough grip to then go again, which kind of annoys me a little bit. I want to be able to turn it off. I want to be able to control the car a little bit. But for those people that aren't quite as switched on, obviously that's a safety feature, it's really important. But I've been trying to figure out how to turn the bloody thing off, and for the life of me I can't see the button. So overall, who's this car for? Well, I think realistically it's for someone 18 to 25, possibly their first car, because it is a lot of fun to drive when you have some space. The rims are sick, the paintwork is awesome, and the speakers sound fantastic. Plus it's got twin exhausts. Who doesn't love twin exhausts? It's cheap, fun, cool, exciting to drive. Yeah, there's some flaws. Yeah, it's not a perfect car, and yeah, it's probably not ideal if you've got kids, being that the back seats are tiny. Overall, it's pretty cool. Thank you so much for watching. My name's been David Burtwhistle. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for the next one. More car videos coming very soon. Bye.